Do you want to know how you can own a detached home in the GTA, even in Toronto proper, for less than the cost of renting it every single month, even while rates are as high as they are today? If you do, stick with me for a couple minutes. I promise this isn't clickbait. We're going to go through a couple of examples that have sold in 2023 so far to show you exactly how you can do it too. My name is Emma. I run a real estate team in Toronto called Monstera, and we help millennials transition from their first home to their forever home using our first to forever strategy. Let's hop into it, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can own a detached home for less than the cost of renting the house right now in 2023. This strategy is one of the 5 strategies that we actually included in our renter to owner guide. So if you're interested in knowing some additional strategies that you can utilize from transitioning from your rental property to owning a property in 2023, there's a link in the description below for you to be able to download that and see if there's an opportunity for you to do something I called strategy stacking. And that would be utilizing this with something else to help build a custom strategy for you. So that is free in the description below. So the strategy that I'm going to discuss with you today is called the GTA house hack. If you're unfamiliar with what house hacking is utilizing a portion of your property to generate income. And what that will typically do is lower your overall expenses. So I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to do that in the GTA to hopefully maintain your current monthly expenses, whether you own something smaller and are looking to transition into something bigger, or you're renting right now. And I also want to preface this by the examples that I'm going to give you today are not utilizing 20% down. I'll show you how you can do it with 20% down. But if you're thinking, this sounds great, I'm a little bit tight on the actual down payment, I'm actually going to show you how to do this with as little as 10% down today in 2023. So that is what house hacking is. It's utilizing a portion of the property to help you generate income to maintain your monthly expenses. So stick with me for a few minutes. This is what I'm going to go through with you today. Who this works for. We're going to look at a couple of examples, and why I think this is really important is because the average price in Toronto, the average home price actually just crossed $1 million to the downside, which is very interesting. We haven't seen that in a while. Then we're going to look at the rental rates together that we can get for each of these examples. We'll assess the overall carrying cost together, and then we're going to break down exactly how much income you actually need to help qualify. Okay, so we're going to go through all of those things today. So the first thing is, who is this going to work for? So there are 2 segments of the market that I think this works really well for that we've been able to help recently. So the first would be those of you that maybe own condos or a smaller property where you're outgrowing the property a little bit and you're looking to transition. And so many of my clients, when I first started in this industry, had purchased these smaller condos that were more affordable. And now they've got married, they're thinking of expanding their family, or maybe they're working from home and they just need a little bit more space. And so what we've realized is the condo market, though it's come down about 13% from the peak, when they're transitioning into, let's say, a detached property, many detached properties have come down about 20% from the peak. And so if we're looking at transitioning and trading upwards from a property that was $1 million at the peak that we can now get for $800,000, and their condo was worth $600,000 and has come down to about $520,000, we're actually building equity on the trade up, and we're utilizing the rental income from the basement to help maintain their exact monthly payments that they've got right now. So if you're looking for a little bit more space, but you don't want to increase your monthly expenses, this is a great opportunity for you. And the second thing would be for any of you that are currently renting right now, and you're thinking about buying, you're like, okay, well, I have some money saved up for a down payment, but I'm just not a condo person, right? I really want to buy that freehold property, and I need to figure out a way for me to go from renting to buying a detached property. Now, with most first-time buyers, or most people that are transitioning from renting to owning, that's a pretty big gap. Many people will have to purchase the condo as a starter, then transition up and transition up again, right? So we kind of have to climb that property ladder. But with this strategy, we're able to kind of bridge that gap by utilizing somebody else's income to help us qualify and to help us maintain something that is comfortable for us to pay on a monthly basis. So those would be the 2 segments of the market that I think could really take advantage of this in 2023. Now, Let's look at a couple examples together. So I'm actually going to go through the numbers with you, and we're going to look at one example in Toronto that sold in January this year, and we're going to look at an example that had sold in Oshawa that is a little bit less expensive. If you're out Durham way, or maybe you have got stationed to work from home and you don't necessarily need to be downtown, you just want to save that money. So we'll talk about both of those, and I'll walk you through both of those situations here in a second. So the first property that we're going to look at together in Toronto is 960 St. Clarence. And what I did was I took a screenshot of the map just to give you an idea of where this property is located. So we're located on the northwestern side of Toronto, just north of the junction, just south of St. Clair. So when it comes to lifestyle, we're close to restaurants, coffee shops, transit. We're within 30 minutes to be able to get to Union Station. We've got tons of parks. You have a lot of young families that are moving into this neighborhood, just to kind of give you an idea of what the demographics would look like for a property like this, and who you could also expect that you would generate from a tenant pool. Let's look at the listing. The property sold on the 19th of January 2023, was listed at $950, and the property sold for $898, so about $900,000. Okay, now when a property sells for under $1 million, like I mentioned earlier in the video, you actually don't need 20% down. As soon as a property breaches that $1 million price point threshold, the minimum down payment requirement would be 20%. But if it's under $1 million, we could put as little as, honestly, 7% down typically. But in the example I'm going to show you is about 10% down. So we'll assume that we have about $90K to work with in this example. So the property sold for $898. And as you can see here, the property had 2 kitchens. So anytime that you see an MLS listing where it has this plus symbol up here and up here, this would be above grade and this would be considered below grade. So I know that there's 3 bedrooms above the ground level, and then I know that there's 1 bedroom, so likely a 1-bedroom basement apartment downstairs, and I can see that there's a kitchen there. So that leads me to believe that I have 3 beds and 1 bath upstairs that I might use for my own personal unit. And then I've got the rental suite in the basement to help me with that rental income. Okay. And then what I did for you guys was I actually pulled a couple of recent examples for rents to showcase where I'm pulling those numbers from. So if I was going to go and move into this area and I was a renter, I could expect that I would be paying somewhere around, between $2,900 and $3,200, depending on the size of the unit. But you can see here, these were rented both. They were the most recent 3 bedroom, 1 washroom units that I could find. And these were both leased at the end of 2022. So in January, to give you an idea from a time frame perspective. So if we know that, then we can say, okay, well, our benchmark is probably going to be somewhere around $3,000 to $3,100 a month is what we would expect that we would pay for rent if we were moving from our current rental or our current condo to go and rent somewhere else. Okay. And then we look at the lower units. So I pulled 2 basement units that are also in W03, which is where this is in Corso Italia. And we can see that one had leased in November and one had leased in January for $1,900 and $1,800 respectively. So we know that we're probably looking at like $1,850 or something like that from a strategic perspective of running our numbers every single month. Now, let's look at this from a mathematical equation perspective to see what the cost is to own the thing versus renting it, if we were comfortable living in that upper unit. So we'll look at the 10% down scenario first. So I'm going to assume that we have $89,800. And again, that's 10% of this overall purchase price for our down payment. Okay. What I've done here is I've screenshotted the Rate Hub calculator to showcase what your monthly expenses would be even after taking into consideration your mortgage insurance. So as of right now, the 3-year fixed rate is 4.79% for a 25-year amortization. And what that gets us is $4,700. So $4,747 per month would be the mortgage payment for this property. And the property tax, I know, is $3,600, so it's about $300 a month. So my total carrying cost, and I'm not factoring in utilities or anything like that, because regardless of where you live, you're likely paying your own utilities. So I was just looking at the raw numbers here for you. So $4,747 is your mortgage, $300 a month is your property tax. So our total carrying cost is $5,047 per month. But what we know is that we're likely to get, and I was conservative with this number, but we're likely to get about $1,800 once we rent the basement. Okay. And I know that my cost to just rent the upper unit, like we said here, and again, I tried to be relatively conservative, I said was $3,000 a month is what it would cost me to rent the same thing. So with 10% down, the cost to own after taking into consideration the rents are $32.47. So it would actually cost me only $247 per month more if I owned the property and I had the down payment. It would cost me $250 more per month to actually own the property than it would cost me to rent it. But we also haven't taken into consideration any of the principal pay down for the mortgage. So that gets us actually into a net positive position. Okay. So in 2023, I just want to assure you that there is the opportunity for you to own a detached home. This is detached, right? You can see here in Toronto for net less than the cost of renting the thing, provided that you have 10% down. Now, we will look at the 20% down alternative in the event that you're like, great, I actually have 20% down and I've been saving, but I've been waiting to see what's happening with the market. So in the 20% down scenario, you are going to have a slightly higher interest rate, which sounds a little weird. You're like, well, if I'm putting down more money, wouldn't I get a better interest rate than 4.79? No, because you don't have any mortgage insurance. And as a result, the bank will typically increase your rate because they're no longer protected with the insurance. If you don't pay your bill, they're chasing you down. In this situation, if you don't pay your bill, they've got the insurance baked into your mortgage payment, and as a result, they give you a slightly lower rate. Okay, so we take into consideration the 3-year fixed rate, which is 5.05, given the fact that you have the higher down payment, and that means that you've got about $180,000, and your monthly payment would be about $4,200 a month. Okay, so we go, with the extra 89,000, we go from 4,750 to about 4,200 a month. Okay, so our mortgage is 4,200, our property tax stays the same, and now our total carrying cost goes from 5,050 to 4,500. Our rental income stays the same, and the cost to rent the unit stays the same. Nothing changes except for the amount that we put down in the mortgage. So the cost for you to own the property after renting the basement suite is actually $2,700 a month. So it would, in a 20% scenario, right off the hop, without even taking into consideration any principal pay down from the mortgage or appreciation from the property or anything like that, immediately cash out of pocket, you pay $300 less per month to actually own the detached property versus renting the suite upstairs from somebody else. So there's a Toronto example for you. Okay. Let's switch over to Oshawa. So the unit that we're looking at in Oshawa is on the east side of Oshawa, almost on the transition line over to Curtis, kind of Clarington area. And we're going to look at another detached property with a bungalow. This has got a garage, and this one sold on the 16th of January, was listed at $789, sold for $775. And this one was interesting because, as you can see here, there's 3 bedrooms upstairs, but you actually have a 2-bedroom basement apartment, which is very interesting. And again, you've got the +1 for the kitchen here, and you've got 3 to 4 parking spaces with about a 50-foot lot. So we have a decent property when it comes to lot size, square footage, all of that kind of stuff. All right. Now, let's transition over to the rents. Again, I've pulled the main floor or the upper floor to keep the numbers as fair as possible. So this leased in December and this leased in January. So we had $2,400 a month for the upper. And again, this was a 3+1. And we had $2,250, and this was a 3+1. Okay, so we know in and around $2,300 a month or so, if we're being conservative, is probably what we're looking at spending if we just wanted to go and rent this property. All right. Now, if we look at the lower rents, so what we could rent the basement for, we're looking at $1,850 to $1,900, right, for the lower unit. And these are, again, both of these were 2-bedroom lower units that have rented both in 2023, in January of 2023. So I feel fairly confident about those numbers given the relevancy of the time frame that it has been rented in. Okay, now let's look at the numbers together. Again, we'll look at the 10% down scenario. So in this case, the 10% would be $77,500. We use the same fixed rate because, again, we have less than 20% down. We've baked in our mortgage insurance. We're paying this mortgage over 25 years, and our monthly mortgage payment is $4,097, so $4,100, as you can see here. Now, the property taxes in Durham region are actually higher than Toronto. They have some of the highest property taxes. So it's about $4,200 annually. And so we know that that is going to be about $355 per month that we have to pay for the property taxes. So our total carrying cost on this property would be about $4,450 per month. Okay. Now, we know that the rental income, which is actually pretty interesting, the rental income in this particular scenario is even higher than what we got in Toronto. So we have $1,850 for our average rental income, and the cost to actually rent the same unit is about $2,300, like I mentioned here, if we're going to go and rent the upper and then rent the lower to somebody else. Okay, so our cost to actually own the property after factoring in these rents would be $302 more per month to own the property with 10% down. Again, not taking into consideration principal pay down. So when we take all of that into consideration, we're at a net positive benefit of owning the property versus renting it. And again, we'll look at the 20% comparative analysis so that you can see what the difference would look like. And so if you had 20% down, that would mean that you had $155,000 saved for the property. Right? Again, no mortgage insurance. So we have to take into consideration the higher interest rate that we would be charged for 3 years. And that would pull our monthly mortgage payment down to $36.24. Okay. So our mortgage is now $36.24. We have the same property taxes, and our total carrying costs are $39.79 from about $4,400. Our rents are the same, and the cost to own the units, again, these don't change. Those are fixed. So the cost to actually own the property would be out of your pocket to live in the upper $2,129 versus $2,300. So it's $171 per month less for you to actually own the property versus renting it in this scenario. So that gives you two overall outlooks on how you can house hack or how you can use leverage in today's market to purchase properties off the peak price and take advantage of, instead of being taken advantage of, the rents and the rental increases that we have seen as a result of the market conditions, right? Many more people are contemplating renting because there's still some uncertainty in the marketplace as to how things are going to go. So what I do know is if we were at the peak of the market, this particular property in St. Clarence, I would have been very surprised if you asked me in January or February of last year, which would be the peak of the market, to see this thing sell for, honestly, probably less than 1.2. So we're buying this from a purchase price perspective significantly off the peak price of the market. Okay, we're looking at like about $300,000 there. So if you want to have the opportunity to actually take advantage of the price reduction and utilize the increased rents to your advantage in today's market, this is an area of opportunity for you to do so and to maintain a similar monthly expense amount is what you would pay if you just went on MLS and asked the owner of this property, can I rent the upstairs from you? Okay, you still have access to the same property. If I'm a condo owner and I have a 1-bedroom condo, you're maybe thinking like, honestly, I'd like to have the whole property. I don't really want to rent it. Well, what I would suggest that you do is we all have to make sacrifices sometimes. Unfortunately, especially in Toronto, most people who purchase properties are making some type of sacrifice. There are very few people out there that get the exact house they want at the exact price they want in the exact location that they want. And so with this, what I would suggest is, well, maybe you're a young family, right? Or maybe you don't have kids yet, but you're planning on having kids in the next couple of years. And maybe you really want to move once and not have to move again. Because to be very honest, I know it sucks to say from a real estate agent perspective, but as somebody who's moved several times, the cost to move with commissions, moving costs, packing all your stuff, taking time off work, it's a lot. So, is this an opportunity where you can transition from your condo to a bigger house and hold this house for a certain period of time until you're ready financially to be able to take over the basement and have that additional space without the cost of commissions, new land transfer tax, and moving again? So maybe you utilize the rental suite in the basement to generate that income, help you substantiate those payments for now. And then in the future, you say, you know what, we're comfortable. We need a little bit more space. We need the basement for our kids, or I need an extra office space because now we're both stationed to work from home. Instead of calling us to sell the house and move, you can let the tenants know, yeah, hey, we've got 60 days notice and I need you to go find something else because I need more space. And all of a sudden you get the additional 500 to 700 square feet or whatever it happens to be that you need to make yourself feel more comfortable or to be able to stay in that property without the headaches of having to move again. So this is really where I see this strategy fitting in long term with our kind of first to forever strategy that we help millennials build. This is a great way to help mitigate the need to move again and some of the overarching costs that are quite heavy after you take into consideration commissions and paying land transfer tax. It eats into a bunch of your equity. So if we can take advantage of purchasing off the peak, utilizing the rents, maintaining a comfortable monthly expense, and then utilizing the property to its full most optimum potential in the future, you're basically just holding that property at a discount for yourself right now. And ultimately, if you decide to move, then you stay in this property for the next 5 to 10 years or whenever you feel confident that the market's going to bounce back. And if we get back to peak prices, which I feel confident we will get back to at some time in the next 5 to 10 years without having a crystal ball, then we've built in and we've baked in some equity to make sure that you have a nice nest egg to be able to move into a property that you're really, really, really happy with. And that's how we get you your dream home. So if you liked this, please give me a thumbs up and a subscribe. If you want to get in contact with myself or my team, there's a link below to book a call directly with us so that we can discuss your unique situation and help build that strategy for you to get you either into your first home or transition you from your first home to your forever home. I'll see you guys in the next one.